The United States owes my family for the free labor they did during slavery.
Reparations should be strictly for foundational Black Americans, descended of freedmen, because we were the ones who suffered in slavery. See, it's reparations for slavery. It's not reparations for racism.
The contributions that we've given to America has not been repaid in the way that it should. And since this is a capitalist society, actually it's an imperialistic capitalist society. Notice the words. We deserve our coins. Run that shit, bro.
We can't let everybody say I'm Black and I should get reparations, because some of you voluntarily came over. You can't say I fought to get over here, but now I'm discriminated against, so I need some resources.
We deserve reparations, even if they try to say, well, we can't give you 40 acres and a mule. No problem. We still want some land, though. And if we don't get our land, we will like so much monetary. Listen, Black people deserve a check for life.
It is not for poor people. It is not for melanated people in America. It is not for all minorities who suffer from racism in America. It is specifically owed to the members of foundational Black Americans, people who originated from the formerly enslaved people. That's it. And many people get it wrong. Y'all remember in 2020 when Kamala Harris was playing around the real definition of reparations. She was afraid to admit that reparations is only meant for foundational Black Americans. I want you to watch this clip.
You support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination and segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country.
We have to focus and keep the emphasis on it being lineage based. The problem is we see a lot of trick bag language being mixed into it, where it opens the floor for other groups to come in and undermine us. Reparations in the form of lineage-based compensation is not a compensation for racism. Let's be very clear. If we open the door to racism, Hispanics can come in, Asians can come in, Middle Eastern people can come in. It will become affirmative action again, where we are left holding the crumbs and everybody else is holding the cake.
You see, that's what I was saying. She cannot say it out loud. She cannot admit that reparations are meant for foundational Black Americans. She's afraid to give out the real definition of reparations. She's trying to make it inclusive, including all poor people in America. But if we are being honest, this woman is not even a foundational Black American. She originated from an immigrant parent from India and Jamaica. So she wasn't standing for foundational Black Americans. All she was trying to do is to get support from your black Americans. And that is why she couldn't admit that her policies are going to make sure that the descendants of the formerly enslaved people will be paid their reparations that the US government owes them. And many candidates in America have been using these tricks. I wanted to show you another clip of Tariq Nasheed. Shout out to him, one of my favorite creators from the US. He's gonna give you the real definition of reparations, who should be given reparations, who should pay reparations, and why these people are owed these reparations. Take a look.
We want tangibles as foundational black Americans. And we're not going to let them redefine what reparations mean, right? Is reparations student loan debt? No. Is reparations HBCU funding? No. Is reparations minority business loans? No. Is reparations catfish nuggets? No. What's reparations? Money! What's reparations? Money! What's reparations? Money! Give yourselves a round of applause. Now, family, when we talk about reparations, we get the same 7 rebuttals from the dominant society, and we need to know how to address their rebuttals when we talk about what we need to get as far as reparations. The first thing that they say is, well, wouldn't reparations be divisive? Wouldn't that make people in the dominant society not like you? Are you here to be liked by the dominant society? Tina Turner told us, what's love got to do with it? We're trying to get our money. We're already divided, but they control our resources. So we want them to divide our money and give it back to us because we're owed a debt as foundational black Americans.
Japanese people who lived here in the United States, Southern California area, they shipped them out, put them in internment camps during the Second World War with Japan. After the war was over, through negotiations, they received every person $20,000 each and a formal apology. And our government, our nation, is wondering whether or not they're deciding whether or not they should apologize for enslaving blacks in America. Now think about this. Now this is what I'm talking about. See, this nation is wrong. I'm sorry. This nation is wrong. Now watch this. Listen, here's why they're wrong. Here's why they're wrong. They won't even apologize to the best citizens that they've ever had.
But I will say it is deeply flawed and deeply disingenuous to equate the plight of my enslaved ancestors to the experience of undocumented individuals and illegals seeking work at places like Home Depot. Let us be clear, these are fundamentally different narratives. Illegals make a choice to leave their homes, pay exorbitant sums to coyotes or plane tickets, some risking their lives to live across borders without invitation from this country. Contrast this with the history of foundational black Americans. Our ancestors were here already. That genealogists just testified that we've been here on this land for 10,000 years. And our other ancestors were trafficked here against their will. Both were stripped of their humanity and forced into systems of slavery that were perpetuated by the United States government across generations. They had no choice. Their children and their children's children were born into chains and could not escape. Though we experienced a Holocaust unlike any other group in the world, we fought here. We persevered here. We forced our oppressors to make change. We are here today to force repair. This is a legacy of pain and resilience that cannot be trivialized or compared to voluntary illegal migration. How can the melanated diaspora, whose lineage does not go back to the 1870 census, look themselves in the mirror and justify benefiting from a system their ancestors did not build while joining with white supremacy against us? How can one emulate colonizers exploiting the very people who fought for justice and equality? In New York, we have lived side by side for decades. We embraced you. We fought for you. When the immigration process excluded black immigrants, we fought for you. And yet the question remains, who fights for black Americans? You come from nations where leaders conspire with white supremacy to exploit their own people, and now some among you replicate that same betrayal here, becoming the very sellout leadership you fled. We see you. How can you align with the colonizers, attempting to stop our birthright? Legacy organizations, you have yet to cross the finish line after all these years. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. It is time to stop the cycle of money wasting and ineffective strategies. This bill is unconstitutional. I have started an email writing campaign to reach out to each and every sponsor and co-sponsor to adapt a new bill that is lineage-based and constitutionally sound. We have told this commission, and now it's time to raise our voice. Please see it's bit.ly/reparationsnys to join the email writing letter campaign. And
thank you, Ms. Brooke. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Reparations, is a debt that's due. Reparations is repair, is a restorative repair for the people who built this country, period.
Black Americans in slavery, we built America. We built the economy, picking cotton and allow it to be. So the free labor built America for centuries, and we got nothing for it, so it's owed to us.
Reparations for Black Americans is not a radical idea. It is not unrealistic. It is not crazy. What's radical is pretending this country does not already keep detailed receipts of what it did.
Black Americans have absolutely no reason to defend America, to fight for America, to honor America, until we give reparations.
We are the foundation of this country, all right? Those are my ancestors, this is my ancestry, and we have been the foundation of this country since day one. Not 2, 3, 4, 5, since day one. And when you start talking about foundationals, you're not talking about people of color, you're not talking about minorities, you're not talking about all lives matter. It is specific. And we got to clear some things up because there seems to be a whole lot of fake misconfusion when it comes to our reparations. When it comes to our reparations, everybody acts like they don't really get it. Well, I'm going to clear it up very well, okay? We have been the economic and the social backbone of this country and this county since day one. Again, it all goes back to day one. Once again, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. So when you start talking about us, the first thing you got to acknowledge is reparations. Reparations in the form of cash payments. All right, not hugs, not kisses, not can't we all get alongs, not Uber rides, not DoorDash, none of that. It is about cash payment reparations. How do we know? It's because we see the money being given to immigrants and migrants right here in this city. When I came here, I seen a bunch of my lineage, foundational Black American brothers and sisters out in the streets sleeping in the cold, while migrants are getting millions of dollars, they're getting tangibles, they're getting resources and benefits and elevated above us. So we're very, very aware of what's going on, not just here in Fulton County, but all across this country. So I'm here to tell everybody, we stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Chicago. We stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in New York City. And I'm letting everybody know it will not go down the same way it's going on across the country. We get nothing and immigrants and migrants get all of our money. So in other words, I'm here to make a declaration for you and everybody watching right now, and that is that the Black American presence in the South is not going anywhere. So in other words, FBA South got something to say, and FBA South is here to stay. So with all that said, in the great words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we are coming to get our check. And I want you guys to pass those reparations for us, and you guys have a great night. With that said, reparations right now. Salute.
I would like to point this out, Mr. Rustin. If you have 100 people who work for you for nothing for a week, you make a profit. If you have 1 million people who work for you for nothing for a year, you become wealthy. Well, then when you have millions of black people whom you can work for nothing for 310 years, you can easily see why America became the wealthiest and the most powerful country on earth faster than any country in history. But here you have 20 million black people today whose parents were worked for 310 years for nothing. What do they have coming for them? Not only did their parents work 310 years for nothing like an animal, but their parents also were the most faithful soldiers that the master had. What payment have they gotten? And today, they're not asking for much. They're not asking for what someone else would ask. Instead of asking for something that's real, they're asking their master to let them occupy one of the rooms in his house or one of the rooms with him in his house. Now, this is still not asking for something. If America gave the black man here half of this country, they wouldn't be giving us anything. They worked our mothers and fathers for 310 years with no pay. The Senate, the Congress, and the U.S. Supreme Court found it necessary to appropriate funds to repay billions of dollars to the Indians for land that was taken from the Indians 300 or 400 years ago. And if this generation of whites will recognize a debt incurred by the former generations of whites to the former generations of Indians, then this same generation of whites also must recognize debts incurred by the former generations of white to your and my forefathers. And if their own courts decree that they should pay the Indian today for what was done to the former generations of Indians, don't you think that God is more just than the court system of America? And if the court system of America says that the Indians must be paid, what do you think God would say that America must do in payment to 20 million black people who worked here for nothing for 310 years?
Here's another thing I'm not lying about. Reparations was always something that the government used when they really wanted to restore and repair their wrongs to a certain group. And in America, reparations has already been dished out to certain communities, period. You don't believe me? How about you dig it up? Reparations was given to certain minority groups in the form of monetary payouts, and also through strict and certain laws and guidelines that support their group specifically. We're not going to even bring up the Native Americans and how they have their form of reparations. Clearly, whenever you go to a casino in California and all that kind of stuff, and they even got land, we're not going to talk about that form of reparations, because then people will be like, you don't even got to say no more. I would like to say more. Nor do we got to talk about the Asian community that benefits from a form of reparations right in your face, or these immigrants and these migrants in a certain group, a certain demographic that get a form of reparation where you'll say, wow. But when Black Americans talk about reparations, we hear that argument first. And what we hear a whole lot as we step into the sun and our melanin is popping, we hear more people who sympathetic for the slave owners' descendants than for the slaves' descendants. And what do I mean by that? You'll have the nerve to have people make an argument and say, well, my family didn't do anything to the Black Americans, so that didn't ever own slaves. So why do we have to pay for what my family did? Shut the fuck up with that fake debate that you can't even have in a community college without somebody debunking it. First and foremost, if that's the mind frame, champ, how about you give back everything that the Black has contributed to America? Because, right, you wasn't there for that right there. So give back all the contributions. And if you don't even want to do the give back the contributions, how about you point out that why wouldn't Blacks make an argument real good about why wouldn't we? Well, you'll say, well, welfare is for the Blacks. What the are you talking about? There's more of other people and other groups that's on welfare than Black Americans. Don't even go there. That's a hole in your whole argument. That's like a bucket with holes in it, and you try to pour water in it, and that shit just doesn't even sit in there well. Now, Black Americans have to organize just a tad bit for reparations to be something. And guess what? They've already put it in motion. In places like California, the most liberal spot, where you'll say, what? They already got shit that's in motion. And this is going to trigger something that's going to spread to every other state. If you can trace your roots, bro, which you can, to anybody that was on that transatlantic slave journey, bro, you deserve a form of it. And then even our sisters and our brothers who's aboriginals to this land, you can get in that too. Because guess who been keeping very detailed tracks of who's who through the census of America? That been keeping track of these Black families and these Black slave plantations and all this kind of stuff. From down south to California to Rhode Island, everywhere you can imagine. The American government and also the Mormons, all the people, the Mormons, they have such a detailed history and they can track so much, bro. Don't know why they got so obsessed with it, but they with the Blacks as far as they want to know where you came from and where you going. And where we going is straight to the bank when we get our reparations, because we need that. They need to run them ducats, bro. Like, yeah, whatever I want to do with mine, even if I want to black fatigue and spend my wherever, it's my business. Even if I decide to burn and run through that, that's mine. Don't tell me what to do with my money. It's mine. So when you hear arguments from the Charlie Kirks, the Nick Fuentes, the Candace Owens, anybody who is against reparations, they're going to feel stupid as when they come across just a regular conversation about it that they can't fight, which is Black Americans deserve reparations.
The second thing that they try to tell us is, well, other people suffered, it just wasn't black people. Irish people were enslaved. Italian people were lynched. Native Americans were mistreated, and they're not complaining, so why are you blacks complaining? Well, the thing is, these people are not complaining because they were compensated. The Irish, who were indentured servants, they got something called freedom dues after their contract ran out. They got money, land, and weapons. They were compensated. Then they were brought into white society to join all the benefits and reap all the gains of being white. When the Italians were lynched down in New Orleans, there was a situation where there was a mass lynching of Italians. Their families were compensated, and the country of Italy was compensated, and the Italians were allowed into white society to reap the benefits. The Native Americans, we know the red ones, they were compensated. They broke off all types of money, and many of them enslaved us as well, so they need to be cutting a check too. The third rebuttal that they have for us is, well, if you want to get reparations, FBAs, why don't you go to the Africans who sold you? Have y'all heard that one? Well, I say to that, number one, the African who sold us, well, he got a one-off. Number two, those countries don't exist no more. Those countries over there were colonized, and they were absorbed into the white European power structure, so all of their resources were drained. So they need to get the resources from the white power structure in Europe that dominated them, while we're getting money from the white power structure that dominated us, the United States government. Another rebuttal, they say, well, all white people didn't even own slaves during slavery. So how are white people responsible? We didn't all own slaves. But it was a slave economy where everybody benefited from the slave economy. So if you were a white person in the 1800s working for the train station economy was built on the resources that were taken back and forth from the south to the north. So you owe. If you worked for an insurance company in the 1800s, yeah, you didn't own a slave, but you were insuring slaves and you were making money off slavery. If you were a white person in the 1800s working for a bank or a factory, you were getting all the raw materials and refining it in those northern factories, benefiting from slavery. So the whole economy was based on the labor of our foundational Black American ancestors. The next rebuttal is, well, my family came over after the Civil War. So I wasn't even here during slavery. So how do I owe? When your family was over there in the slums of Europe, they heard about a country that was built up off the wealth from the free labor of our ancestors. And they knew that that wealth was mass distributed from our hands into white society and locked in racially. And they sat over there in Europe and said, sign me up, I want to go over there and be a part of that. So since you want to be a part of it, you're part of the debt and you owe too.
Slavery was bad and all, but reparations just aren't realistic. The fact is reparations are realistic, but people love to shut down the conversation around reparations in one of three ways, by saying that there's nothing that needs to be repaired, that it's too expensive, or that it's impossible or impractical. So let's debunk each one and get smarter in seconds. First, there is a lot that needs to be repaired, especially in the context of the United States, but right now we're going to focus on chattel and slavery. Reparations can include direct payments, scholarships, policy changes, government subsidies, or the return of bodies, art, artifacts, or land by a government or institution to an individual or community community that has been harmed or wronged in the past. It's estimated that the United States benefited from over 222 million hours of forced labor between 1619 and 1865 when chattel slavery ended. That adds up to $100 trillion in unpaid wages. Now, that lost wealth combined with policy decisions like Jim Crow, redlining, segregation, and mass incarceration has resulted in a vast racial wealth gap between African American families and white American families. Not to mention the fact that programs like the GI Bill that were supposed to help all Americans build wealth specifically discriminated against African Americans. This brings us to the second point about reparations being too expensive. And economists estimate that a reparations bill of just $14 trillion could totally eliminate the racial wealth gap. I will admit that is a lot of money, but the context here is that the United States military already spends nearly $1 trillion each year on defense spending. So if a reparations program was enacted over a period of years, this is very attainable. We have already allotted trillions of dollars for war, bank bailouts, tax cuts for the wealthiest among us, and COVID relief. And think about the amount of taxpayer dollars that are already going to other countries for their endless wars. We should keep in mind that the reason we have all of this wealth to begin with is because of the forced enslaved labor that we profited from for centuries. The fact that so many descendants of enslaved African Americans are living in poverty today is a policy decision. Now, maybe you're like the person at the beginning where you believe that slavery was a huge wrong that should be repaired, but that reparations are just impossible. Well, this third point is for you. You should know that the United States and many other countries have already paid reparations many times. Maybe you need some proof. Don't worry, I got you. In 1988, the United States government paid $20,000 to each Japanese American survivor of Japanese incarceration during World War II. And in 1971, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act returned 44 million acres to Native Alaskans, along with nearly $1 billion. And in 1994, Florida paid reparations to survivors of the 1923 Rosewood Massacre, a racist attack that destroyed an entire African American community. If we've done reparations before, we can do them again. The question was never if reparations were practical, the question is whether we will prioritize them. So we've debunked the three biggest arguments against reparations. Does this change the way you see reparations? If you want to learn more,
reparations, in fact, is very American. Since 1971, when indigenous Alaskans received nearly $1 billion and more than 44 million acres of land through the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. Ethnic groups who have suffered mistreatment at the hands of the United States government have been demanding reparations, and except for African Americans getting it, everybody else gets it but us. America is paying heavily for its sin.
My mother's Jamaican. My father's Panamanian. You have a lot of black people in this country who are not descendants of the American slave trade.
Look.
So I already know off top, there's a lot of black people in America who aren't going to be able to get that kind of benefit or get reparations.
Well, most people who are for reparations, they feel like it should go to what they call foundational black Americans anyway.
And I agree with that point. But I'm just saying, I'm just laying out, these are the reasons for why I'm no.
Look,
so now
they do support reparations for what Leonard just deemed as, quote, foundational black Americans.
No, I don't.
No.
But I want to explain that. I want to explain.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we want to sever ties with these people. This is why. This man's name is Byron Donalds. He is a congressman, a Republican United States representative in the state of Florida. Do you know what congressmen do? They actually create bills, legislation, and basically they help to facilitate and make laws. What would reparations be? It could either be a bill or a law. And this immediately no, because he's a Jamaican Panamanian. He's an immigrant, and he will not be able to get any of those benefits. And this is the issue. This is the issue. Why people that have the same hue of complexion as us, they get into positions of power and they undermine us. And this is why we say we don't want to f with them like that no more. Because we helped them to get into position. We did. Thinking that skin folk was kinfolk. And now we're starting to see clear as day that they will never, ever pass or put anything into play to solely benefit us. But they will do for immigrants. They will pass bills and laws for immigrants. They will allocate funds simply and strictly and only and exclusively for immigrants. Y'all see how that go? Y'all see how that go? Yeah, people keep saying we need unity, we need unity. What benefiting from these people? They don't even And when they get in positions where they could do something for us, they're going to say no if they're not benefiting from it. But they will, like I said, we got to run it back again. They will do something that's going to only solely benefit them. We have to continue to wake the. We cannot keep letting this. We all the same hue of complexion. The cops gonna stop us, and we all gonna get. It's a trick bag at this point. It's a trick bag, and there are so many of people with the same exact mindset in politics that have the ability to vote for certain bills and laws and have the ability to veto certain bills and laws.
What does a government do when it causes harm, documents the harm, benefits from the harm, watches the harm compound for centuries, and then pretend time magically absolves responsibility? Because that is not a philosophical question. That is the United States of America. This government did not merely allow slavery. It legalized it, it taxed it, it insured it, it protected it with law, courts, and violence. And when slavery formally ended, the harm did not. The government did not pivot to repair. It pivoted to control. Jim Crow was not a cultural accident. It was law. Redlining was not prejudice. It was federal housing policy. The exclusion of black Americans from the New Deal, Social Security, and the GI Bill was not coincidence. It was written into legislation and selectively enforced by the state. So let me be clear about what that means. For decades, the US government subsidized white wealth while blocking black wealth. At the exact moment when the American middle class was being created, home ownership is the single greatest source of generational wealth in this country. The federal government decided who got access to it and who did not. That decision did not disappear when the ink dried. It compounded, it multiplied, it echoed forward, which is why today the racial wealth gap exists not because of culture, not because of effort, not because of choices, but because the government engineered different starting lines, enforced them for generations, and then walked away pretending the race was fair. And here's the part that destroys every counter argument. The US government already knows this. That's why it has census data tracking racial wealth gaps. That's why it has redlining maps showing exactly where harm occurred. That's why it has records of discriminatory GI Bill implementation. That's why economists can trace modern inequality directly back to state action. This right here is documentation. This is not a conspiracy theory.
The group has voted 5-4 that reparations should be paid to descendants of black slaves who were living in the United States during the 19th century.
Let me just make sure I heard that clearly. The blinds is closing for this. Say it again for me.
Next week, restitution will go to direct descendants of either free blacks or enslaved African Americans living in the United States by the end of the 19th century. Each eligible person could be owed more than $300,000. That would cost.
Before I start, this video is fake, scripted, and for educational purposes. Don't believe anything I'm saying. So far, here are the responses to some white people.
To decide who gets these reparations, because let's be honest, blacks are not the only ones with a history of racist oppression here in the United States.
Well, since we're all screaming about equality, well, what about those natives that were here long before any of us? You know, we pushed them out of their land and put them on little reservations and trailer homes.
So apparently, if you're white and you live in California, you're gonna have to start paying slave taxes.
I'm gonna let y'all know right now, I don't trust California. Y'all know for sure I don't trust them donkeys. I'm gonna let y'all know that the donkeys only do things when it's gonna be in some benefit of them. Do y'all remember when the only reason why they fought for slavery because they couldn't control the South? They didn't get involved until it was beneficial for them. Not to mention that California stayed closed. Even though the stay-at-home order was over, during that time, they were doing very shady stuff, like spending $1.6 billion on masks that were never delivered. So whereas reparations, it's been 157 years we were supposed to get our reparations. The whole time the country was involved and we were stuck at a stoplight. I don't have time in this video to explain to the people who I previously just showed why we need reparations. Like I said, there's always that one person who tries to gaslight situation. What about this or what about that? Nobody will ever get the light of day to express their issues if somebody...
Before y'all lose your shit and start saying, I didn't have any slaves, slavery was over 100 years ago, chill the fuck out, all right? Because that's not what we're talking about. This did not end 100 years ago. Slavery was not the end of all discrimination. It was not the end of all wealth being stripped and taken from black Americans. Reconstruction era, Jim Crow era, Civil Rights era, the crack epidemic, there's not a point in time where America was not putting down black Americans, taking their wealth from them, and preventing them from building capital. I went through and listed a whole bunch of black towns that were destroyed by angry white mobs. Many of these towns were self-sufficient, and many of them had very wealthy black residents like Jack Hawley, who had like 700 acres, a granary, a general store that was taken from him and never given back. He never got any reparations for it. That is wealth and capital that could have been passed on generationally that was stopped by white America. And it wasn't just the angry racist mobs that were causing this wealth inequality. Even though that alone should qualify for reparations, there was also the redlining. There was also the U.S. highways that destroyed neighborhoods. There was gentrification that's still happening today. In a capitalist society, those who have capital will get more capital. Those who don't have capital, even what they have will be taken from them. So while white Americans got to pass on their capital, their wealth, generation after generation, Black Americans and brown Americans had to restart over and over. Have y'all not played Monopoly? Do you know what happens when one person owns all the properties? It gets a lot less fun to play for the rest of the people. Shit, when I played Monopoly, we were ready to fight each other. My siblings, we hated each other after that game. If you were winning, you were just rubbing it in everybody else's face, and the losers were always having the worst time and end up flipping the damn board over. That is literally a perfect analogy of what is happening today. Black Americans are flipping the board over. They're tired of the game because the game has never suited them. It's getting boring. So how do we give out reparations? At this point, it would be damn near impossible to do it based on race, okay? There's so much mixing, what percentage, who would get it, it would just make a whole big mess. So that's why most people immediately stop thinking about reparations. Oh, we can't even do it. That'd be too complicated. But there is a way to do it. Y'all just don't want to give reparation. You could set up reparations that are not just cash. You're not just giving out stimulus checks. You could set it up to where people in these zip codes that were redlined can get loans, interest-free loans for houses, for businesses. Reparations does not have to be cash. It could be education. It could be welfare. It could be housing. To prevent people from gentrifying these areas because of these loans, you do it based on income. This would also benefit not only Black Americans, but Mexican Americans, Native Americans, Hawaiians, even Puerto Ricans. The entire island of Puerto Rico would qualify for this. Germany gave out reparations, okay? And they apologized. They sincerely apologized for what they did. And now look at their nation. It's one of the best places to live in the world. Hands down. Your social benefits are there. You have unlimited sick days. You have paid time off. You have affordable food, affordable housing. These are all things that were made possible because they paid reparations. I would argue if they never paid reparations, they would not have as great of a society as they do, because the people changed. The hearts of the people changed. And that's what has never happened in America. And even if this whole thing flops and nobody's life gets better because of reparations, right? At least we have shown people that we are changed by heart and that we care and that we want these communities to do better. And that would actually give these people in these communities a reason to care about America, a reason to fight for freedom. Right now, they have no reason. We've never given them a reason because we've never truly apologized. We've never rectified what happened. And until that day happens, we are going to be divided in this country.
Why should Black people get reparations? Why should I get reparations for something that I wasn't involved in that doesn't affect me? It does affect me. And let me preface this by saying, you can't look at the few Black people who have wealth and power, money, whatever, and use them as the example, because the majority live lives like I do. And you will get some Black people who say, oh, I've never experienced this and I've never experienced that. And that is quite possible. But the reality for most Black Americans is the same as mine. My skin color makes me a target. Okay? I am affected by slavery because we were the slave. Okay, slaves used to be slaves until a white man made it just Africans. Africans are the slave. That dark skin, that blood, that African blood, that makes you these. Okay, so just being Black makes me a target. Okay, but let me tell you this quick story. About 10 years ago, I don't know, I had just graduated from medical assisting school. I got hired at a hospital. I was ready to be a nurse, but I wanted to be a medical assistant first to see if I could deal with it. I got hired at a hospital in psychiatry. Loved it. When I got there, they didn't have any medical people on staff. It was all psychiatrists and clinical people. So we moved to a new building, and it was my job to set up a laboratory in the new building because we didn't have a lab when they were on the hospital property. Y'all, I worked my I set that lab up without any help because I was in a clinic full of racist white people. Nobody wanted to help me do anything, so I did it myself. I coordinated with the courier to come and pick up the blood that I drew. I got a centrifuge. I had to order the blood draw chair. Nobody would help me. When I asked them for tubes, for blood tube holders, tube racks for my blood draws, the racist clinic coordinator brought me popsicle maker thingies from the Dollar Tree, all the while calling me nigger behind my back every chance he got because people were telling me, and I heard him sometimes. All because of my skin color. So I got in there, I did my thing, and I wrote a professional memo, and I put it in all the doctors' mailboxes because they needed to get vitals on their patients, and they used to struggle with that. Psychiatrists can't take blood pressure. In case y'all didn't know, most of them cannot. So I was like, bam, I'm here now. I can help you guys. When your patients get here, I will, coordinate and communicate with the girl up front, with Donna, and I'll get your patients, get their vitals and everything before you see them, so you can see how the DEPA code is doing or whatever. Put that memo in the doctor's mailboxes, and the top dog, I'm talking about the head man, who was in fact a white man, he invited me to this big meeting, a meeting that nobody got an invite. I'm talking about that thing was G14 classified. And I got an invite to it. Sitting in the middle of this meeting, the fly in the milk around all these racist white people judging me. And that man was asking me all of these questions, like he wanted to know what my plan was. He thought it was a good idea. Those people fought me every step of the way. Those racist white people could not stand the fact that I was progressing. The girl up front, when my patients got there, she wouldn't tell me, so I couldn't get their vitals and stuff. And the doctors would come down there mad. I thought you were going to get... Yeah, I was, but Donna won't tell me when the... they tried to sabotage me. Then, one doctor claimed that I contaminated some blood because the blood came back with high potassium levels. I called the lab. Lab tech said, no, the potassium levels were high. This doctor wrote an email about how I was incompetent, how I mishandled the blood and everything. And then when I presented facts and receipts in an email reply to her to let her know that I didn't mishandle it and that it was high potassium levels for real, they came to my office and told me, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, I shouldn't have what? Responded? Shouldn't have stood up for myself? That doctor got with the clinic coordinator, and they went to the top person and convinced them I didn't know what I was doing. Sent me to internal meds to shadow a phlebotomist because I didn't know what I was doing. Y'all, I was so pissed. Tired of racist white people who, by the way, are in most positions of power in this country. So to be black and to live in a country that made my very skin color, my very appearance, my existence, made that almost illegal and inhumane. Living in a country run by people who think that's okay? Honey, and you don't think that we're affected? This was just one story. I have a whole box, Pandora's box, because I try to keep them in there tight. I try to keep that stuff out of my head because I don't want to start hating all white people because I keep replaying this stuff. Like at 16 years old, trying to get a job at Family Dollar, and the man who owned the place sitting there pecking at the keyboard and asking for my help with Excel. I was 16 years old, typing 45 words per minute. Come on now, I could have been running that company. But I'm not the corporate color. My response really isn't even to the commenter, the person that asked this question. It's really to the people who wonder about this but aren't bold enough to post the question. Because usually when people ask the question, I'm realizing y'all really don't want to know. You just want to start a conversation so that you can press your opinion or whatever. So I'm really not interested if you're really not trying to figure out or learn or, get united over here. My response is to anybody who may be wondering about reparations. And if you still don't get it, that's on you.
All right, brothers and sisters, you've heard everything that is being said in those clips. Shout out to every one of you who have taken time to come and watch this video. So before we go ahead with my commentaries, I want you to write the name of where you're watching from and just drop a black fist emoji down there in the comment section. I know many of you are proud to be foundational Black Americans, and I want you to confirm it by just dropping a black fist emoji. And God bless you for always coming here to support me. So I'm going to start by correcting some of the mistakes that were made in those clips. You've had some people calling foundational Black Americans African Americans. That is wrong. That is a mistake, a common mistake that I've been telling people to avoid. Especially y'all Black Americans, you've got to stop calling yourselves African Americans. Because if you keep referring yourselves to as African Americans, you're going to be confused with African immigrants living in the US. And I also want to give a shout out to our creators whose clips were featured in the video, including Tariq Nasheed and more other creators. They have given us very insightful information that I'm going to use to educate you about some of the topics that cause confusion on this topic of reparations. Brothers and sisters, reparations is not a favor. Yes, reparations is not a favor from the US government. Reparation is not a charity work. Reparation is the amount of money that is owed by the US government to members of foundational Black Americans. Here, when we say members of foundational Black Americans, we are talking about people who originated from formerly enslaved people, foundational Black Americans. Not melanated migrants, not Latinos, not Asians, members of foundational Black Americans. And some of the claims that many people tend to bring forward is that America has no capacity to pay reparations to more than 40 million members of foundational Black Americans. That is wrong. That is a myth. In fact, if you go back in the history, America has been paying reparations to many other groups. They have paid reparations to Japanese, they have paid reparations and still paying reparations to Native Americans. They have given reparations to Alaska. So America is super rich. It has a lot of money. So you cannot say that it is not capable to pay reparations to these Black Americans, knowing that these people who are asking for their reparations are the ones who have even built American economy. They are the ones who have built most of the infrastructures in America. They are the ones who have uplifted America from being a poor country to being the richest country on the whole world. Tell me how America can't pay them their reparations. They have money, they have abilities. What they don't have is the will to pay money that is owed to foundational Black Americans. And I was reading on Twitter this morning. I saw one post that captured my attention. In that post, people were saying that if reparations are given to Black Americans in form of check, they are going to misuse this money. They will not be able to use it properly, to allocate that money into investments, to buy bonds, to buy stock, to start businesses. That was the claim. So this person who posted that post was saying that Black Americans shouldn't be given reparations because even if they can be given these reparations, they're going to misuse the money and then go back to the original economic state that they were in before being given reparations. But one reply that I've seen on that post was from a foundational Black American man. He said that y'all people don't have the right to tell us how to use these reparations because this is the money that the US government owes us. So they have no right to tell us or to teach us how to use this money. We all have different problems. Some of us have debt to pay. Some of us want to purchase their home. Others want to go to school. Others want to pay their student loans. So every foundational Black American has their problems to be solved. So whenever this check is handed to them, they are going to use this money in whatever thing they want. They can even go on vacation with this money as long as it is money that is owed to them. It's not a grant, it's not a favor, it's a money that is owed to them. And we tend to hear many melanated migrants from the Caribbean, from Africa, from India. Yeah, there are many melanated Indians living in America, being affected by racism. And then they say, we are also being affected, so we need to get reparations. As if reparations is the money that will be paid to the people who are being affected by racism. So if that was the description of reparations, even Latinos would ask for reparations, Asians would ask for reparations, Italians would ask for reparations. Everybody who is being affected by racism in America would be claiming their reparations. And that is why Tariq Nasheed and many other members of Foundation of Black Americans, they have started this movement of delineation. And their sole purpose is to make sure that the members of Foundation of Black Americans are isolated from all of those other minority groups, melanated minority groups, so that when the US government is sending reparation checks to these members of Foundation of Black Americans, these melanated migrants won't start asking for their reparations. In fact, your Caribbeans, your Africans, your Indians were colonized. European countries have stolen your resources. So instead of trying to attach yourselves to this Foundation of Black Americans, why not go to those European countries that colonized you and ask them for your reparations? Jamaicans, why not go to the UK and ask them for your reparations? Nigeria, you were also colonized by the UK. Why not going there and ask them to pay you reparations? You all know what happened in Africa. Many of these slaves were not even captured by force. They were sold by African chiefs at that time. So if I can say, I would even say that African countries themselves need to pay some reparations to these people because they sold them. Now, we cannot say that there is any specific African country that did this because at that moment there were no modern borders that were drawn by Europeans. But we know the truth. We have studied the history, we know what happened. Some chiefs were exchanging slaves for just small gifts like mirrors, clothes, guns, and other small objects, just selling their own people. Another interesting topic, another interesting point that I want to bring back again is how many candidates who are campaigning to become leaders in America use this trick of lying members of Foundation of Black Americans that they're gonna start paying reparations to them only just to be voted and act as if nothing happened. You've had Kamala Harris. He failed to specify that he was going to initiate policies of paying reparations to these members of Foundation of Black Americans. All she was saying was that she's going to support poor people, people earning less than $100,000 per year. That was her policy. The policy was not to pay reparations to Black Americans. The policy was to support poor people, to support vulnerable people, not paying reparations to members of Foundation of Black Americans. So according to her, if you are a rich Black American, you don't deserve a reparation. And if you are a poor white American, you should also be given reparations. And that is wrong. And you've been seeing how many of these melanated migrants, whenever they arrive in the USA, they don't understand the reasons why y'all Black Americans have been consistently claiming your reparations. To them, they think that you are entitled. That's what they think. They think that you don't want to work. But the reality is that they're not being affected by the impacts of slavery, the trauma that comes with slavery, the discrimination that came with slavery. And they think just because they left their countries, arrived to the USA, go to school there, get some degrees, get a job, they think they're doing better. They think that y'all Black Americans are wasting time asking for your reparations. But if they knew the history of black Americans in that country, they wouldn't be saying such a thing. They wouldn't be asking you not to ask for your reparations. I'm telling you. There is a lady who came up with a very interesting story at the end of those clips. You've heard her. She was working at a hospital in the psychiatry industry, and she was discriminated against just because of her skin color. She was told that she's not capable of what she was doing just because she was black. It's one of the impacts of slavery, where many people are being hired not because of their abilities or their experience, but because of their skin color. I mean, black Americans are still being left behind because they are melanated. And then you come out here and you start telling them that they shouldn't be asking for reparations. That is wrong. In order to make sure that black Americans compete at the same level as other groups in America, they should be given their reparations. And I will say it and say it again. Black Americans should be given their reparations. Brothers and sisters, you've heard everything that was said in the video. You've heard the creators, people who support the reparations, people who don't support the reparations. And this is the time for y'all just to tell me what you think about this topic of reparations. First, do you support black Americans being given their reparations? Second, do you think that there will be time where the US government will sit down and give reparations to these members of Foundation of Black Americans? Thirdly, what do you think about black Americans who don't support the reparations? What do you think about them? Let us know down there in the comment section. This video is for awareness and educational purpose. We don't have any intention of attacking anybody. We're just trying to educate you, share our opinions on some of the pressing topics in the black American community. So that was it for today. African brother, Mr. TA signing off.